Hello there, this is Nigel Edwards at UK Hypnosis and Coaching. And this video is about 5 keys to understanding and overcoming anxiety. Now, my speciality is in helping people overcome anxiety and stresses, which often leads to bad habits like smoking, fears and phobias. Now, in particular, this short video is about 5 keys to helping you understand and overcome those anxieties. And what do my clients say? Client reviews have been very fortunate to have a number of really good reviews about how people have actually overcome lifelong, sometimes, and very life debilitating anxieties. For instance, there was a client that I had, a young lady a while back. She was suffering from severe anxiety, panic attacks where she was having heart palpitations, waking up in the middle of the night, just feeling panic for no reason. It was affecting her relationships, her work. She wasn't paying too much attention to self-care. And generally this was snowballing. Life was looking grim. And she was really suffering with that. So one of her friends had mentioned hypnosis to her and mentioned me. So I linked up with her for a strategy call. And during the strategy call, I work out and listen carefully to the types of issues that people have been suffering from. And then by working out the triggers and a tailor-made solution to those problems, I can understand what needs to be done, how to approach it. And in this particular case, she needed to know more about hypnosis. Often that's a question, people don't know much about it. So I explained that it's more about me giving you control back of your mind rather than taking anything away. The experience of hypnosis is very individual, and people tend to mention that it's like a light and floating sort of feeling, or equally a heavy feeling because all your muscles are relaxed, just sitting in your chair, very relaxed. And then there's a combination where you have this amazing, wonderful feeling that you're sitting in a chair and just listening to me talking to you. That also happens. And I don't take control over your mind in any way to put you into a dark hole where you don't know what's going on. People will always remember about as much from a hypnosis session as from an average conversation. Now, you can't get stuck in hypnosis. It's a very natural state. People go in and out of trances every day. Perhaps you've experienced that time driving along and you can't remember what happened in the last 10 minutes of that journey. That's a driving trance. Your unconscious mind is taking control of driving the car. And if the traffic conditions change or your junction comes up, usually your conscious mind comes back into play and you can continue on your journey. Trances happen naturally, and we tend to react to external influences. So say there's a real threat out there, something that's actually threatening, like a bear or a tiger, you will start to feel fear in your body. But equally, that same feeling can be generated if you're watching a scary film. You have that scary feeling inside you. And the same thing happens where we play these scary stories or these movies or these images to ourselves, where your anxiety creates pictures and you're feeding those pictures with more catastrophic endings and that sort of thing. That then triggers off the fight or flight mechanism in your brain and in your body. So you feel scared, and that just feeds back further. So we've got a balance of the brain going on. There's the logical side and the emotional side, and it's about balancing them up. So I do teach techniques on how to balance that brain up, and as well as that, forming new neural pathways. So you've got habits at the moment of thinking in a certain way, and thoughts create feelings. And by changing those neural pathways, so you have a better pathway of thought to go down, which is established over a little bit of repetition. And you'll soon start feeling that you can forget about that old thought pathway, that old behavior, that old pattern, and go towards the positive and how that will benefit you. Now, with this particular client that I mentioned, she'd been suffering for a long time. And obviously that was debilitating and restricting life, affecting relationships at home, affecting work relationships. And that could easily have gone down into further and further problems with financials and certainly with health. Now, she'd been to doctors to seek advice, which is always the best thing. Now, I'm not a doctor, so I'll never diagnose and I'll never prescribe. But I do find that clients such as that one had gone to the doctors and had been given some, anti-anxiety medications, and that hadn't worked too well. So she went back for a better, bit more advice on that sort of thing, and the prescription was changed. But she reported that it often made her feel numb to feelings, or just made her feel like a bit of a zombie. And then there's the side effects of a lot of these drugs that are leading to a bit of insomnia or headaches, and those sorts of feelings can add to the anxiety sometimes. But in some cases they do, obviously they do work. There's a requirement out there for these sorts of things. Sometimes where medications aren't working, people join a long queue for CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, or psychological help, that sort of thing. And there's a long waiting list for those things. And whilst they do work in many cases, all too often, after such a long wait, people feel a bit let down, or they feel like they're just talking over the same problem over and over again. And it's like putting a sticking plaster on a cut that's got a thorn in it. We need to take that thorn out. So that's where hypnosis comes in. And we deal with the underlying cause of the original problem. Your unconscious mind is always learning and adapting your behavior to certain situations. It like takes a camera snapshot of a moment in time when something happened and you reacted in a certain way. And your unconscious mind will always repeat the patterns that served you before. And maybe that pattern is no longer serving you now. So you need to be able to break out of that. Hypnosis goes into the unconscious part of the brain where these programs and patterns are running, and helps to establish new pathways. What you think results in how you feel. So if you can think in a different way along a new neural pathway, learning a new habit, you're going to be feeling differently. And understanding how this mind and body thing works is amazingly important to work out how to control better, how you feel, how to take control back of those sorts of things. So going back to this client again, after our strategy session, I worked out a program for her. It's tailored to the individual, as in her case. It was a course of 3 sessions, online Zoom sessions with me. So she was in the comfort of her own home, not having to travel, not having to go to a therapist's office, whereas the problem is often felt at home. And wherever your mind is where the change needs to take place. So behind a laptop at home, in the comfort of your own home, you can experience that change too. So wherever your head is, that's where the changes happen. Now, the Zoom sessions are supported with some audio hypnosis recordings that can be helped for stress relief and relaxation, or improved sleep. That can be supporting the 3 weekly sessions as this lady had. And also I provide information to read up about anxiety and sleep, or whatever is the particular situation. So that lady engaged with the sessions with me. And then after week 1, she reported feeling a lot more freer, sort of a floating and more happy feeling, able to employ the techniques I showed her with video support for those, if she ever needed to recap on how that worked. And employing those techniques prevented the old pathways from being triggered. So she was able to stop herself from going into that fight or flight. Having the sweaty palms and the palpitations wasn't necessary anymore. After week 2, we discussed a little bit more about the triggers, what food she was eating, what drink she was having, and how that was affecting her mood and how she was feeling about things. Particularly things like sugar highs, by having the wrong kind of foods at the wrong kind of times, can trigger anxiety attacks, believe it or not, because the sugar highs go with sugar lows. The brain starts reacting to a deprivation of sugar and goes looking for more, making you feel anxious. So there's the sugar, there's the food and drink side of things. After the second week, she reported that her sleep pattern had improved a lot, and the household atmosphere had changed from this feeling of a bit of doom and gloom to a much more lighter feeling. She felt more confident. Going into work, people around her noticed that she was much more feeling confident and calm about things. So this at the first bit, a few moments of thoughts where we needed to employ those techniques became unnecessary in the end, where she was actually stronger in her default way of thinking. New neural pathways in the brain were established, and she was able to take that control. And the feedback a lot later on, she was feeling a lot healthier with liaising with her doctor. She wasn't requiring to take any medications anymore, which was brilliant news. That's exactly what she wanted to achieve. And I was really pleased to be able to help her with that situation. So that's a background of that. So these 5 keys. Number 1, catching it early. Find out what the triggers are. What are the triggers, the things that are triggering off that feeling of anxiety? And are there some techniques that can be used to be able to stop those triggers from firing off the fight or flight? We've got things like what we eat, what we drink, how we think, how we sleep, and also how we behave. Those 5 things all together will help to establish how to catch things early and to be more in control of things. Dealing with the unconscious mind and the unconscious mind is point number 2. At that unconscious mind level, you're not aware of everything that's going on. So if I just say to you now, imagine that you can tap into the feeling in the top of your head, the little muscles and fibers up there. Now, you're not usually aware of the feeling at the top of your head or even of your feet. Now you can go to your feet. Were you aware of those sensations before I actually mentioned it? Possibly not. So dealing with the unconscious mind involves going through neural pathways. And as I mentioned earlier, by thinking, you're creating feelings. And feelings will result in behaviors and patterns. And by improving the neural pathways, the thinking and the feeling, you can improve the way that you behave generally and the way that situations will help you to feel. All of this saves a lot of time and money and counseling. Don't need to go off on different tangents to try and resolve this. If you can deal with the unconscious mind level, that's really important to your road to success. Point number 3 is that road to recovery. Now, if you can journal when it happens, where it happens, with who, what images come up, what feelings come up, what sounds, frame around what's going on. If you can, slow down time to say, I felt anxious when that happened, but what was the first thing you felt or the first thing that you saw in your mind's eye that made you carry on with that anxious thought? If you can identify that, we've got a clue as to where to start. And understanding that, whether it's people, whether it's food, whether it's something you drink, an environment or a perception of an environment. So an experience and an emotion creates a perception. So that's the start of the road to recovery. Point 4, work on things daily, not just when it happens. So you need to work on things a little bit by establishing that new pathway. You're going to be aiming towards that as your default. The old pathway will tend to disappear after a while, just like a pathway through a woods, for instance. A new nice pathway might take a few goes to remember where it is and to find your way through it. Meanwhile, we set some roadblocks up at the old pathway, it will begin to disappear. Same way that the brain works with neural pathways. What fires together eventually wires together. And the body makes proteins to support neural pathways. So some of that protein will come away from old pathways that are no longer used. So by working on it daily, you're going to improve your thought patterns, strengthen those stronger thought patterns to go where you want to go, and becoming familiar with the unfamiliar. Those sorts of things are all important on working on it daily. So finding the right therapist is going to be helpful in getting through to this. Becoming a specialist in anxiety takes understanding of social anxiety, anxiety with food, anxiety with speaking. And by my client testimonials, you can see that I am a specialist in anxiety, and I tailor every session to the needs of the individual. So I'm not one of these script reading people. I will look at you in the eye and I will work out exactly what needs to be done so that we can bring you to a better understanding and a better pattern of life to overcome that anxiety. So all of these sessions are tailored to your individual needs, and I react according to what you bring to the session. So mistakes on focusing on the problem is the fifth point to make. A lot of people will just focus on the problem state. And the unconscious mind works in this really strange way. So if I say, think of a polar bear, think of a nice white fluffy polar bear, you can easily imagine that. But if I say, don't think about a white polar bear, don't think about one, you're having to still create that thought in your mind to try and dismiss it. The unconscious mind doesn't really do the don't bit. So what you want to focus on is where you want to go, how you want to feel, what's going to be good for you. All right. So thinking on the positives is really important. As if you concentrate on any problem, you're going to magnify it. Focusing on anything negative just brings that more towards your conscious mind through your unconscious mind. Avoiding self-indulgence. A lot of people will Google things, and yes, there's a confirmation bias that's always going to go on. Whatever you Google for confirmation of something, it will always provide you with results on it. So watching out for that self-indulgence in being in the problem state and finding out more and more about that problem state. Social network groups, particularly in the smoking environment or the anxiety environment. There's a lot of people who mean very well, but they are not really prepared on how to deal with things properly. So, for instance, there's the nicotine replacement products that are out there, and people will quite often say, "Oh, try this and try this and try this," but that's prolonging the problem with a smoking habit. Believe it or not, a lot of the nicotine replacement therapies are actually made by the same businesses that provide the cigarettes, so they're winning either way. And the social groups, although they mean well, their advice is not always very, very good. Also social, the mainstream media. There's a deluge of bad news every day on things, and they are very carefully crafted to put their point across by images and repetition. And there's this deluge of bad news every day that can inflame anxiety even more, make people feel even more anxious. And by constantly having the news on, people will start feeling worse and worse and worse. So less news. By all means, do keep in touch with what goes on in the world. That's important, but not on this daily repetitive basis of adding to that anxiety. Is anxiety permanent? No, it doesn't need to be. You don't need to just have coping mechanisms on how to deal with anxiety. Let's get to the nub of the problem. Take the thorn out of the cut, not just put a plaster over the top of it. Getting to the source of it. And again, it's those daily routines, the new ways of thinking that's going to improve the way that you feel about yourself. Planning your day, planning ahead. What would make the perfect day? How could I be the best version of me tomorrow? And at the end of the day, and at each time you achieve something, celebrate the wins, celebrate those small steps, breaking things down into small, easily manageable steps, and celebrating each time you achieve something that you want to achieve. Reflecting on that at the end of the day will put you in this state of, yeah, I've done all of these things well today. Being kind to yourself, your inner dialogue, how you speak to yourself is so important to feeling better and improving every single day by making it your focus to be more positive, more structured, more self-congratulating. And looking down my little list here, the best resources. You can have different versions of you for different occasions. Say there's the you that deals with work matters. There's the you that plays with a pet, perhaps, or a young child. So getting the right part of you for the right state of mind, for the right job is really important. So you wouldn't want to be making a speech to a load of people if you had got the playing with your pet version of you going on. It doesn't work so well, and that's why people feel nervous in certain occasions and don't perform as well as they can do. It's getting the right ego state, the right resource, the right strength there for that occasion. Choices of food and drink are really important to the way that you feel. Your body will react to sugar levels, as I mentioned earlier. So it's really important to get the food right, what you eat, what you drink, how you sleep. That's also a nutrient. Sleep is a nutrient. And what you think. And that leads to that behavior and body language and body breathing and the way that you hold your body. If you're slumped over and feeling nervous and small, that's restricting your breathing. So your body affects your behavior. Okay, so all of those things together are really important. So I also teach self-hypnosis. If you learn how to do self-hypnosis, you can continue with ongoing improvement in life, to continue working on those unconscious behavior patterns and experiences. How can you get better each and every day in a certain way? It's really easy to do, and I teach that to everybody as part of my hypnosis course. And all of these things together can save people a couple of years. You could leave it to chance, or you could watch videos and read books and learn very slowly. That's great. That can work for people. But if you really want to get there quickly now and save having that continual pain, the problems at home and relationships and the problems at work and the having to rely on external medications or supplements or whatever it is, go for hypnotherapy. After a little while, we sort out what's actually going on. You'll understand so much more about the mind and body, and you can really deal with it. So it's very easy. It's Nigel Edwards at ukhypnosisandcoaching.co.uk. On my website, there's a booking page where you can book yourself a free strategy call, which is about 20 minutes long, where I can listen to exactly what you're experiencing, work out the plan of how to help you to overcome that anxiety, stress, fears, phobias, bad habits, such as smoking. And I look forward to speaking with you. I hope that's been helpful to you, and have a lovely day. Bye-bye.